Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with Terri Lonowski. She is founder of Soulful Listening, a TEDx speaker, an author, keynote speaker, and featured podcast guest like this pod today. That inspires evolutionary listening. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about leadership, mindfulness, podcasting, and soulful listening. This podcast is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start your own podcast, if you want to scale it, monetize it, you can go to podpire.com. Terri, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you, Charles. First of all, I'm so impressed with all that you're up to, and it is just delightful to spend a little bit of time with you. And so you had mentioned had done a TEDx, and I'm really involved with soulful listening. So I think maybe it might be helpful to kind of share a little bit about what inspired that and where the pain point is that really calls upon all of us to do a better job of deep, connected listening. So I have felt the pain of loneliness and disconnect from early on. And so in my hometown, I lived on the second floor of a very large house. Some would call it a mansion. And the second floor, because my family had converted the first floor into a bustling restaurant with banging and clanging and late night bar crowds beneath my bedroom. And I have kind of a quieter, softer temperament. And so what I wanted more than anything was to feel seen and heard and connected. And my parents were all encompassed with the business. And so they were not available. But there was one person that was, and that was my grandma Helga. And in her presence, it felt as though we were in a safe, warm, delicious bubble. And savory aromas were wafting in from the kitchen. And when I was with her, it felt like the rest of the world had disappeared. And if you've ever been heard in that way, it's easy to remember how precious that is. And so I was in this small town in high school, going in to visit with my high school counselor about what's next. And he said, Terri, you're a small town girl. You get lost in a big city. Your best bet is to go to secretarial school and work for your family restaurant. Well, that was a limiting, dangerous kind of sentence to press upon a young girl. So I felt like my future was being ripped away. And so then I turned to Grandma Helga, and she was a wise woman, twice widowed, very resilient, successful in business, and her words carried precious weight. And so when I shared the story with her, she said, Terri, look at all I've done without education. Think of what you can do with it. And in that moment, the trajectory of my life shifted forever. And I went on to do some of the things you had mentioned. I got a master's degree in educational psychology, led human-centered design teams that were working on workforce innovations, led them to the White House to showcase innovation at the White House twice. So without that one pivotal conversation, my life would not be the way that it looks now. And so that really has struck me throughout my life, how one deeply connected conversation can be pivotal, can change the trajectory of somebody's life and the world they impact. And so when I was working with these human-centered design teams, and those that have worked with human-centered design, at the core of that is empathy. And I saw programs flip on their ear. And then I thought, they're still missing pieces. They're still missing pieces. And then I was reviewing some research and discovered that over half of the population is lonely. And the health implications of that are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And the health implications further are greater than those of obesity. So this broke my heart, and I had to do something. And so through reviewing research, really analyzing what helped me to thrive despite the odds, and listening, out of that emerged the approach that's holistic, that's called soulful listening, which has 5 easily repeatable elements to it. So that's kind of the backdrop of it. And if some point you would like me to kind of brush over what those 5 elements are, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I'd prefer to have a conversation. How do you soulfully listen? What's your tip for that?
Right. So really it's incorporating these 5 elements, because oftentimes we don't realize how important self-care is. High quality self-care and high quality communication are directly linked. So self-care is that first element, because I think we can all imagine a time when we've been rested, have eaten good nutrition for a few days, we're more emotionally available. Conversely, when we are depleted and we're a wreck, we can't even be there for ourselves, let alone for another person. And so this kind of self-care includes things like setting healthy boundaries, being mindful of the loop that's going in your head, our self-talk. What does that look like? And so when we take care of ourselves in this way, and we all live busy lives, so sometimes it's just squeezing it in here and there, but it's really being aware of where you are, and that helps you tap into higher degrees of emotional intelligence too. And all of this sets us up for the second element of soulful listening, which is becoming fully present. And I imagine we all can think of times when we can almost see a bubble above a person's head with all of the things they're thinking about. We feel it. And to be present, you mentioned mindfulness. So I often will suggest people, do a breathing exercise. Like maybe even just breathe in. We'll just do it now. Let's do 3 intentional breaths. So first of all, just check in with your body, see how you feel right now. Maybe wiggle around a little bit and shrug your shoulders. And now breathe in through your nose, and we're going to hold, and then we're going to breathe out through our mouth. So let's begin. Breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, 4, and out to the count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, in, 2, 3, 4, and out. And a final time, in and out. Notice your body now. I can even feel the energy has shifted between the two of us. So when we truly take care of ourselves and become fully present in this way, we bring a quality of grace and compassion into our interactions, which is so needed. And this sets us up for the third element of soulful listening, which is quantum listening. And quantum listening is different than just average listening. It's all in listening, where we're listening with every fiber of our being through all of our senses and beyond, picking up on nuances, body language, and a little bit beyond. And when we connect in this deeper way, we often gain insights into how we might be helpful to another person, especially when we enter into the conversation with an openness, maybe some high quality questions. And we guard ourselves from playing out both sides of a conversation before we enter it. In the past, that may have looked like, oh, well, he's going to say this, I'm going to say that. It's going to end like this. And when we do that, it just really constricts our connection. So if you can open up, have some quality questions kind of floating around here, and tune in. And when we connect on this deeper way and getting those insights, we're really in a position to help another person. And the fourth element of soulful listening is inspired action. And that's taking action on insights we gain through these conversations. We all have access to different resources and connections that can be of enormous value to another person. And when we take actions, no strings attached, imagine how that feels. Yeah, just imagine how that feels. But it doesn't end there. We can feel heard, heads nodding, and then a person kind of disappears. They may or may not have taken action, but if they don't circle back and let us know, we are making up stories. Oh, did they even hear me? Did they even care? And so the fifth element of soulful listening is the feedback loop. And that is letting the person know, hey, we had that conversation, I'm doing this, might not be able to do all of it, but. And so as these 5 elements are repeated, it embeds integrity. and confidence in relationships. Yeah.
As a podcaster, there's preparation, so you check someone's background. In my case, it's a bit weird because I talked to 1,500 CEOs last year, so talked to so many folks. But how much should I remind myself of the points or check the documentation that I have on each guest, vs being in the moment with them and listening to what they have to say right now? Is it 20% being in the moment, 80% prep? In my case, I think it's like 70% in the moment, 30% prep. Most would go with 20 prep and sorry, 20% present and 80% in the in preparation. So yeah, I'm gonna do that again. 20% in the moment, so they're not really in the moment, and 80% preparation. And because most podcasts are scripted, so what should be the approach here? Should I mostly be with you in the present or have my preparation right next to me and prepare the questions?
That is such a rich question. I'm going to kind of feel into that for a second. To me, it feels like when we're present, we can really access the unexpected, maybe even the greater genius, whether it be in work or into our interpersonal relationships or between us right now. You know, that little golden nugget that is just waiting to be unleashed, or the genius in one of your employees is just waiting to be unleashed. And so when we're present, when we have that ability to hold the space for the conversation to unfold, magic. So I think that it is up to each person, and to begin, test this out with maybe a conversation over the course of the next week, and just give yourself feedback. Oh, what different happened when I did that? And kind of have your own internal guidance system nudge you in a direction that is in alignment with you. Yeah.
When should we tune out of a conversation? Like if we feel the person is not sharing our value and so forth, like when should we do that and how should we do it respectfully?
And so to tune out, do you mean to just kind of dismiss them in the moment?
Not dismiss them, but kind of disconnect yourself from them. Like, I mean, if they're saying crazy things and you don't agree with that, when's the right moment to just cut it off because it's just not good data or energy.
Right. So the first element of soulful listening is self-care. And I mentioned setting healthy boundaries. You know, if you're in a conversation with somebody who's toxic and attacking and being just overall destructive, we have a responsibility to ourselves and to others, to ourselves in the way to protect ourselves, and which I'm sensing that you were alluding to. If they're pummeling you with this negative energy, and also to set that boundary helps the other person too, because they realize that there are some guardrails. I can't get away with that. And so that would be that's kind of off the cuff response to that.
So if you nowadays in your case, when you talk to people, you have to remind yourself of how to intentfully listen, or does it all come naturally?
Well, I'm pretty much this way most of the time, and I will fall off into a not as great mode at times if I'm not feeling well and if I'm triggered. And so then I have to remind myself, but this is how I am at, like 99% of the time. And so it becomes not a methodology. It's really a way of being in this world, no matter where you go. And then you don't have to like game yourself into, okay, in this setting, I'm this way. I'm just this way all the time. Yeah.
So I guess practice and probably having a serotonin mechanism, which tells your brain that you're rewarded once you listen to people. How does that work? What are the kind of rewards that I can get from soulfully listening to someone?
Right. The deepening of relationships. And in the workplace, I just did a keynote, and a CEO reached out to me. They had done a survey, and they found that their staff of about over 250 were not pleased with the way communication was playing out. And so he called me and said, "Terri, you know, I know you have this soulful listening thing. What can we do?" And so in that moment, I worked with him, and we came up with a plan to work with like executives in one group for like a half a day. And so the rewards are when, like in an organization, people will find out that, oh, my leaders do care about me, about ideas I have, about being heard. So the takeaway at the end of this event that I just mentioned was people felt that they would be more valued as these kinds of conversations continue to be part of the culture of that organization. And they felt more comfortable in offering bolder, out of the box ideas. So when you look at that, whether it be in a workplace or in an interpersonal relationship, so let's say it's between you and your son, and you interact in this way, and you're open to what they have to say, and maybe you take some action on it. And I could give so many stories, but it's just the value, and then that is reciprocated. And it doesn't mean you let people get away with stuff or don't call them to express higher degrees of excellence. I'm all about high performance. So it's a way of getting there. It's a way unleashing those locked up ideas and those locked up geniuses. And I believe that we are in a time in our world where we need the best and the brightest in each of us more fully expressed.
And do you think AI can do a better job at listening if it takes notes, it doesn't miss out info, and it can potentially calculate emotions? Let's say you're in a down moment and you don't have much EQ in you. Like, can AI do a better job, or is it us humans' job to do that?
Well, it's our very nature as humans to thrive when we feel seen and heard and supported by others, period. And so I don't know if AI can do that. I do know that human to human, when we feel connected, when we feel supported, we blossom, and when we don't, the statistic that I offered earlier, we wither inside, and we hold back our ideas. Let's say again in the workplace, because we have CEOs here. If your people that are on your team do not feel heard, or they feel like their ideas are not valued, they will be reluctant to offer those bold, like innovative ideas. And they'll have, especially the really bright ones, especially the really bright people that are with us today, if they do not feel valued, they will have one eye looking at the door at all times. They are savvy enough and they are able to perform well enough that their performance will not be questioned, but their heart won't be in it. Yeah.
I don't really know what it is to feel lonely. I mean, sometimes I write that it's lonely at the top as a founder or CEO, but I think I'm sort of hybrid extrovert, introvert, and I feel good by myself also, like without the presence of human beings. I have my wife, have my dogs, have my friends, have my family. Um, like who's lonely nowadays? You talk about that 20 cigarettes a day, which is quite interesting analogy, or stats. I'd want to double check that, because yeah, 20 cigarettes a day, that means like cancer in 10 years
Right.
probably, and dying in another 5 to 7. Anyway, um, what does it feel like? Who's lonely? Is it like an extrovert that cannot get people in their lives? Is it like people not in relationships that cut the links with their parents and friends for whatever reason?
Yeah, with the figure being at over 50%, it would be the full range of all of those that you just mentioned. And it may be very deceptive. Let's say a person has a high following on social media. Maybe they have like 1 million followers and they are rocking it on all the platforms, yet they haven't looked eye to eye and had a conversation beyond the superficial in 6 months.
Yeah,
Or
wow.
you say that or you think, well, I have this social network and we're going out to eat and we're doing this and we're doing that. And everybody's looking at their phone, not each other. So there, it can be deceptive. We think that we have all of this going on, but there is an ache deep in the soul uh, for for the lack of meaningful connection. And like I said, somebody taking inspired action, well, that is so powerful because then you do not feel so alone. Yeah.
These are great cases. I can definitely picture those. It's always interesting when you go at the restaurant and there's a full table of 10 humans all looking at their phones. It's like, what have we gone into, or in the bus or metro or airplane, you check and everyone's on their phone. What kind of effect can that have on humanity? Like so many lonely people or people that are all about themselves. Sometimes it's me, me, me. They can't listen or they don't have interests. I mean, I was raised on video games, and kids nowadays, they all have a tablets in front of them. So what could be the consequences for humanity?
Yeah, I like technology, and I think that it offers great value to all of us. I also believe in human connection, and it concerns me when I don't see really good communication, really connected communication happening on a regular basis. Because when you think of a young person, you said they have their tablet, they have this, that, and the other thing. Where are they learning how to have just conversations, just plain old conversations, let alone a high stakes conversation where it gets a little gravelly, it gets a little dicey, and you've got to have those conversations to really become, the best version of ourselves. But if we collapse, at the thought of even looking a person in the eye and really tuning in, if that is puts it so ill at ease, what happens when we have like a high stakes, difficult conversation? That's what concerns me. That's why I am so committed to sharing this gift of deeper connection because it's not being modeled on just an organic basis very often. And when it does, when we have like a deeply connected conversation, it is so rich, it's so sweet, it's so memorable. Think of a time when you were having a conversation with somebody and you felt like the rest of the world had just disappeared. Those are moments that we hold in our hearts forever. And when we've been challenged by a person, let's say we've had a relationship like this over many, many, many years, and now it's time for us to kind of make a big pivotal decision. We can go to that person and open up and share freely, and we can be receptive to maybe a wisdom and a nudge forward. Yeah.
Interesting. And I agree. Yes, conversations are game changing. I think first the effects of loneliness could, and the lack of listening could be that, yeah, like less babies, like less relationships,
Mhm.
because you need to be able to listen to the other. Um, my case, like sometimes it's deciphering some codes when it comes to listening to my wife and really understanding what she needs, it's like being a rocket scientist or something. In my case, right? Because EQ is definitely not my forte. And the second part to this, yeah, like I mean the great convos that I had as a young drunkard at 16 with people, that was my great fun, like going to parties and talking to people. I think I brought it today in this podcast, but without the alcohol, right? So that's how important that is to me. I think I can learn tons from people, and I think I provide a different style of conversations to folks, and that's a great value. That was the premise behind that pod. Add value to the world. Now, I have one last question for you, and pardon my obsession with AI, but I'm using an app nowadays called HeyPie, and basically it's like a psychotherapist. It's like GPT, but psychotherapist style. So it
Mhm.
listens to you and it asks questions back, which is quite valuable at any time of the day on my mobile.
Okay.
It's created by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, or at least he's an investor or important stakes holder in the company. So do you feel that AI can do a great job at actually listening to someone intentfully and asking a great question back? And do you think it can make the world less lonely or more lonely?
No, it's just my sense that it could augment, real conversations. I don't see it necessarily as a replacement, but maybe an additional tool, an additional source for that. Because let's say, you're in the 3 o'clock in the morning and you're having like a moment. Maybe there's value in being able to have, even if you ask yourself questions at that time, it can be helpful. So maybe having an external asking of that question could be of value too. I still believe that the human connection, I believe with all that I am, that we thrive when we feel seen and heard and supported by other humans. I've experienced in my own life. I've guided others through that, and it's 100%. Yeah.
Terri, thank you for today. Where can people find out more about you?
One of the places would be my website, soulfullistening.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I love to connect there. I There's a book that I'm a co-author with. It's going to be launched this Saturday. So that's one place. And then I'm in the process of writing another book on soulful listening. So all of those things. So I look forward to hearing from your audience, and it's been just a delight spending time with you.